Hi everyone, this is your host and your coach, Dr. Mary Ayers from tapintoaction.com. We've got a great show today because we're going to be talking about something that everybody has felt at some time in their life. Some people are more prone to a little bit more of it. Some people glide through it a little bit better, but everybody has experienced it. And of course, what I'm talking about is embarrassment. Like I said, everybody has had a moment when they have felt embarrassed. What we're talking about is personal embarrassment, which really comes down to being an unwanted attention to something that's private or personal, and especially if it points out a flaw or we've had some kind of social awkwardness. As I was doing my research for this show, I saw a study that showed that there were 6 different ways that you can feel and experience embarrassment. So let me run through them for you. You'll probably find yourself in one of these situations, if not multiple. I'll run through them so that you can hear them, and as you do, ask yourself, does that affect me? What can I remember has happened to me, perhaps, that I might still be carrying around? Because later on, we're going to use these as tapping targets. But for right now, I want you to think of what has to happen for it to trigger an embarrassed reaction from you. So the first one, we call it privacy, which is like, let's say, you look down and your shirt's gaping open and you've had a little bit more exposure physically than you are comfortable with. It can also be an invasion of space or property, somebody looking through your purse or looking at some notes that you took. And the reaction is a feeling of exposure and awkwardness. The next is a lack of knowledge. It might be, forgetting something, forgetting names, or failing at something that is an easy task that other people can do and you feel foolish that you can't do it. Another is criticism and rejection. We all know this one. This is kind of like being the center of attention, whether it's positive or negative. Some people really hate to be the center of attention and are quite embarrassed by it, with all of the attention being on them. Here's one I know you'll recognize because we've all had this. Awkward acts, right? Clumsiness, dropping something on us, tripping over something. I can think for myself of walking down the street and there's that tiny little lift in the sidewalk, but sure enough, you catch it and you stumble. You don't fall, but you just have that little awkward fall forward kind of thing. And we look around and see who saw that. So clumsiness, spilling something on yourself, especially in a certain situation. You may not feel embarrassed at home around people you know, but if you're spilling at a business luncheon, then we feel awkward. Or another way that might happen is, let's say we snort while we're laughing, or suddenly our laugh is louder than we expected. Any of those kind of social awkward acts can cause us to get embarrassed. Another is appropriate image. And that's an interesting one because it can involve body image, the way you feel that you look, and how we don't want to be seen. And it can be things like feeling that you have clothes that are out of date, or you've got an old phone instead of having the newest upgraded one, or you live in an area that you feel is inferior and you don't want people to see it or see the way your house looks. I know I've got clients who've talked about the difficulty they feel when their house is full of clutter and they don't want people to come over because they're embarrassed that others will see the way that they live, that they're unorganized. So see, that's a form of embarrassment as well. And the last one is called environmental embarrassment. And that might be coming out of an ice cream store and you see somebody from work or your Weight Watcher pal, something like that it's where you are that brings the embarrassment. I'd put in this category too is being with people who do embarrassing things and we are in close proximity to them. I can remember when my kids played soccer, standing there while one of the dads was screaming at the ref and feeling, oh my gosh, I am so close to him. I wanted to move away. I wanted to dissociate myself because I didn't want to be identified as with that person who was screaming obnoxiously at the ref and at the other kids on the team. We've all had that experience too, right? Where somebody has done something. Maybe you go out with your friends and one gets a little loud or reckless, or they say things inappropriately, and we, by virtue of being close to them, can feel the cringe of that embarrassment. We just want to get away because we too now are the object of attention. Now, our reaction to embarrassing moments can be on a continuum from barely bothered by it to extreme feelings of blushing and having a real physical reaction to it and wanting to just shrivel up and slink away. And that's really good for you to observe to what level in these different situations that I just listed are you more likely to have a lot of embarrassment, feel a lot of embarrassment, as opposed to being only slightly bothered. You can laugh it off. You can recover quickly. Extreme embarrassment, strong embarrassments are, of course, recorded by our body because it is such a strong reaction. It may involve a very chemical reaction, meaning we feel a flush of adrenaline in a situation that we feel very exposed and awkward at. And our body will remember that. It will hold on to it. But on top of it, here's what it does. The mind has that tendency to project out into the future, to future situations. And if it evaluates the possibility of being embarrassed again, the mind's answer to that is don't do it. It looks painful, then the mind says, stop, don't do it. So here's what happens for us. Let's say you have a business that requires you to go in and do some networking. And the mind then goes out ahead of you, scouts the possibility that you could feel foolish in some way. And you'll either tighten up about it or you'll excuse yourself so you don't have to do it. You may be very uncomfortable during the situation, almost holding your breath. So you're kind of holding yourself in a very tight way, anticipating, worried about trying to be prepared for a situation that might feel awkward and exposing. And many times, as we know, that kind of tightness actually can create us spilling something. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because we're so concerned about it. And then we walk away with another piece of evidence that says, see, it is dangerous out there. It isn't safe. It will feel awkward. I will feel like I don't belong, that people are judging me, and we'll struggle with the next time we have to do it. So that's the reason we would want to tap. We're going to talk about tapping on past events, and we're going to talk about tapping on future events. So we've done a lot of talk about how to tap on a past event in many of my other shows where you take out that old embarrassing moment, and these can go back to third grade, having to speak when you had to speak in front of the class and you flubbed that up and people laughed at you. They can go back because remember, we remember them in our body. And so you would want to go back and tap through all the points while running that old event as a movie. I've done this technique in other shows. You can go back and reference it. It's just a way of taking an old event and running it through like a movie and seeing it and seeing yourself in it, how it felt, how you froze, how your body is responding as you're watching it now. You have to be in that file to be able to do that old work. You have to feel it like it was happening right now. And you would want to go through that old event multiple times until you can watch it and it takes on a different tone. It looks differently. Some people have even described it as I can barely see it now. But more than anything is that when you watch it, your current reaction to it is one of a lack of response, almost a neutrality, as I like to call it. And word of warning to you, if you have something that you yourself don't feel that you could address, that's when you might work with somebody else who can help lead you through it. You're not alone, and there's somebody there to help you go through that process and release those old stored memories. I know that it's almost an oxymoron because we're talking about something that we're embarrassed about. How am I supposed to tell somebody about it? I'd be almost embarrassed again. Well, what I'd say is that it's really activated, and the value of that is that for the practitioner is that you're already in the file and you've already accessed it, and it's an opportunity because it's so heightened for you to do some really good work with somebody and really free yourself from that old event. So now let's talk about upcoming events. Because I said that the mind automatically goes out there and is evaluating the potential for it to be embarrassment, it robs us of new opportunities because now we may not go into a new experience and have a different outcome, so that we are gathering new evidence of a new way of being and feeling and interacting with people. Even if we spilled the water in front of a group of people, or we tripped, or we snorted, or whatever, when we tap in advance of that event, the value that we get is that when something like that, if it was to happen, our reaction would be at a lower caliber of reaction. We wouldn't have such a spike. We'd be able to handle it differently. And by doing that, the value of that is that now you've got new evidence that you can survive no matter what happens, that you are okay, that you can keep yourself safe, and it allows you the freedom to engage with more activities. So let's talk about a future event. How do you prepare for it? First of all, be willing to take the time to do the work ahead of the event. Take some time to go through this kind of forward movie process, which will give you an edge when you actually go into that event. So I'm going to use something like, let's just say that you've got a business meeting coming up with which you have to speak, and people are going to be asking you questions, and that makes you rather anxious and nervous. It's uncomfortable. You're afraid of messing up. You're afraid of not knowing the answers. And by the way, maybe you're making pictures of this, feeling stumped, feeling put on the spot, everybody looking at you in the meeting. Maybe you make pictures that you are not pronouncing things right. You said the numbers wrong in a report and somebody called you on it and you're mortified about it. We do this, right? We make those pictures ahead of time. We see the worst thing possible and we're reacting. Our body is feeling it in that moment. We're going to help our body to feel calm, even if it's imagining those kinds of things happening, those awkward situations. And what you would do is I'm going to have you just go through the points on the body. You're just tapping and moving through them, because here's how you would be doing it. You want to start at a place in this movie where you are calm and comfortable. You are not already spiked and concerned and whatnot. And go through the points as you watch yourself walking into the room. Maybe you're standing at the front of the room. Everybody's coming in. You can hear everything shuffling around. And stop and notice how your body is feeling. What's the tenseness level in it so far? Freeze it anytime that you notice that you're starting to get pretty activated. Freeze the movie and go through the points, noticing how your body is feeling. This tenseness in my body, the tightness in my body, the closing of my throat. I'm getting embarrassed. I'm anticipating the worst. I'm getting tense. My breathing's getting labored. You want to stay there working through that until you can take a breath and feel your body calm. Then go back and do it again. See yourself walking into the room. See everybody entering. See you standing at the front again. Notice the difference. Check your body. As long as it's still in that softer place, then take the next step. See yourself having to do the speaking. See you looking out at people. Look at their faces. What faces are they making? Freeze that frame again. Check your body. Make sure how is it feeling. If it's tense again, you want to stop there. Do your tapping until you feel it soften again. Now the key is you're going to go back to the beginning and you're going to go through the motions of walking into the room, people coming in, you standing up, you're starting to speak. I want you to notice what will more than likely happen is that each time you can get further and further and further. Now add an element to this visualization where maybe it's something like somebody raises their hand or says something, or you kind of stumble and you drop a piece of paper. Add an embarrassing, what you would call an awkward flub. Add an element like that into this scenario and notice what happens. So you're tapping about it. Notice what you're feeling. If you feel that it's pretty charged again, then you're going to stop there and do some tapping. Go back to the beginning. Run it again. See yourself dropping your papers or spilling something and see how it feels now. Continue doing this until you've just kind of run through the whole entire event. Keep adding an embarrassing opportunity there. Something else happened. Somebody does something. A loud noise from outside happened. Now what you are doing is you're putting elements in that are preparing you. What could be the worst thing? And as you're doing it, you're giving your body the experience of being there and being softer, being calmer. Now your body is registering it from a much calmer place, and it's saying, you know what? I can do this and I can handle what might be coming up in here. It might be a little disturbing, but it doesn't destroy me. It doesn't make me lose face. I don't feel the need to run away and hide. Now, if it's possible, you want to run a movie like that maybe a couple of times before that event. Hopefully, even you've given yourself a couple of days to anticipate what might happen, and you've had an opportunity to run this movie ahead of time. What I really encourage you to do then is notice the day that the event happens. Notice what is different. Allow yourself to have that observer part of you watching yourself feeling calmer, being okay. Even if you are not completely calm, but you know that in the past you would have been, let's say, a 10 on that scale, and now that you're showing up at a 6, you're recording that event, how you interacted with everybody. You're recording that event at a much softer level. And when you're doing that, you're getting evidence that, again, you can survive, that you can shine, that you can be safe, and that you can have a good experience in the end. Now, obviously, this is not the kind of thing you do only in one situation. There are so many opportunities in our life where we have to go and do something that we can pre-plan for. And every time we do, we cut down the amount of experiences that we have of feeling these intense embarrassment feelings. Here's a really cool thing too, is that let's say you're out with friends and somebody does something really goofy and you feel embarrassed. And it came out of the clear blue. You weren't prepared for it. You couldn't imagine that this kind of thing would happen. The value is you go home and you tap on that event. You're helping to ease the memory of that so it doesn't become one more evidence in your body. You want to take the charge off soon after that awkward moment when your body kind of froze and got that little bit of a shock in it. You want to take that off your body just as soon as you can, because then you're not storing it for future evidence that you're going to have to tap on some other time. So I hope you can see how the frequency of feeling embarrassed is going to decrease, because if you do your pre-work, you're going to find that when you do get embarrassed and you do your tapping on it, that it doesn't last as long. So the duration of those embarrassing moments decreases. And that maybe even the intensity of some of those embarrassing moments might decrease as well. You might notice that you would have been more embarrassed if this had happened even 6 months ago, but now you're noticing, yeah, it still bothers you, but not to the level that as it has in the past. And this really shows progress. This really shows that you're making changes on that physical level. When we see a decrease in the intensity, we know that we are making changes in our body. So while we may not be able to avoid all embarrassing moments, the fact is that we can do something when they come up. We can help ourselves by how we're visualizing upcoming events, and we can have a whole different outcome when we do this kind of tapping. Well, great. I'd love to hear how you respond to this, what the effects of it were. Please feel free to email me at mary@tapintooaction.com. If you would like to keep up to date on the shows that I'm doing and other events that I do, you can also go to my website, tapintooaction.com. You can sign up at the top. You get a free Tap Into Success audio and workbook. It'll put you on my mailing list, and then you'll hear about upcoming shows and other events. And if you would like to take your tapping to a new level, or maybe you're struggling with it, you feel a little stuck, I'd love to see how I could be helpful for you. Email me at mary@tapintooaction.com. We'll set up a time to talk and see how I can be helpful. So until next time, this is your coach, Dr. Mary Ayers. Stay brilliant. Hi, this is your coach, Mary, and I know that when it comes to taking action, there are times, no matter how sincere your intentions are, that you still can't get yourself to take action. I get it. Sometimes fear and anxiety can be so overwhelming that you don't even know where to begin. I want you to know you don't have to do it alone. So here's one action you can easily take. Go to tapintooaction.com to find resources to support you. And while you're there, you can download the powerful and popular How to Tap Your Way to Success audio and workbook. It's free. So go to tapintooaction.com now.